October 25th regular Board of Education meeting to order. Nikki, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Dan Barta.
Present.
Rich Jeffrey.
Present.
Carrie Ellison. Present. Teresa Key. Present. Nikki Matley is present. Cheryl McGuire.
Nikki's here.
Dylan McGuire.
Here.
Phil Vosberg.
Here.
Tim Moore.
Present. All right, we have a quorum and we're in session. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening or amend it.
Yeah, I would like, actually, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to change the description to the closed session number 10A. The same language up to wit, and then after to wit, it should say compensation for recommended high school SOAR coordinator candidate.
Okay. We've got a motion to amend this evening's agenda to amend item 10. Maintain the language up to wit. Thereafter, change it to be compensation for recommended high school SOAR coordinator candidate. A second? Do I have a second?
Second.
So motion by Dan.
And I can just say that the reason I'm asking this is just for more compliance with open meetings, to be clear. When we're going into closed session, it's not talking about the position generally, which I believe that needs to be done in open session. It's talking about individual candidates, and that I believe is a proper subject to the closed session.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions about this amendment? Hearing none, by voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Now I need a motion to approve our now amended agenda.
So, second.
Got a motion by Teresa and a second by Terry. Any questions? By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Move on to consent items. Does any board member wish to remove a consent item for individual consideration? Hearing none, I'll read them into the record. We are approving the minutes from the annual meeting of October 11th, 2021. The minutes from the Board of Education meeting on October 11th, 2021. Approval of receipts and expenditures for September of 2021. Approval of the Monroe High School Safety Drill Report. Approval of the Abraham Lincoln Safety Drill Report. Approval of exempt staff resignation, John Witt, High School Maintenance Custodial Supervisor. Approval of professional staff resignation, Sarah Ackerman Stone, High School ESL teacher. Approval acceptance of community donations, Compure Financial, water bottles to all elementary schools. And from the Aguilar family, hand sanitizer to Parkside Elementary. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Terry. Any discussion? By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're now on to public comment. So public comment is a vital part of feedback to the board for matters of interest to the public. For those of you unfamiliar with public comment, you're making a statement or a speech about your opinion on a topic pertinent to the business that the board conducts and must be within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. Because our board meetings are a meeting held in public, not a public meeting, there wouldn't be a dialogue with you about your comment. That means while the board may not respond directly to you, we will take them into consideration as those matters come before the board. We ask that you limit your comment to 5 minutes and begin with your name for the record. I'll let you know when your time has expired. And first up, we have Peter Schmidt.
My name is Peter Schmidt. Over the last several months, I have been one of many witnesses to a situation gradually unfolding at our local school board meetings that I find exceedingly disturbing. It appears that our school board and Superintendent Mr. Bosky have forgotten their roles in serving our community. I'd like to remind everyone that the school board is an elected body with the responsibility of serving the public in our community. The superintendent is not elected. He is hired by the elected school board to oversee operations of the school and to report back to the school board. Addressing the public, running school board meetings, and making wide-ranging decisions about policy within the school district are not among the responsibilities of the superintendent. Those are the functions of the school board, people whom we as a community elected to take on the responsibilities. So why is it that these supposed school board meetings feel more like a press conference for our superintendent? Why is it that Mr. Watsky addresses the public, runs meetings, and speaks on behalf of the school board? These are actions that the school board, specifically the president of our school board, should be taking on, not the superintendent. We did not elect Mr. Watsky to do this. In fact, we did not choose him at all. I understand that the school board agreed to give Mr. Watsky the ability to make urgent decisions for schools until they could be discussed at the next upcoming school board meeting. This does not translate to Mr. Watsky being given sole control over the school district. We elected our school board members and put our trust into them to hire a superintendent of good character and regard for the well-being of our community. That's right, hire. Mr. Watsky is an employee of the school board, not an elected official, and should be acting as such. Clearly, our trust has been betrayed. Let me offer an example. At a previous meeting, an involved member of our community, John Wood, was speaking. He reached the 5-minute mark with a lot of time, but was not quite done expressing what he wanted the school board to know. Mr. Watsky proceeded to yell at Mr. Wood that his time was up, effectively forced him to cut his message short. I cannot express how incredibly rude and unprofessional that kind of behavior is, especially coming from someone who is not supposed to be in that role in the first place. Another example, Mr. Watsky has refused to look community members in the eyes when they are speaking, and has even gone to the lengths of eating while community members are trying to address the school board. These are people with genuine concerns about the operations of our school, given the current state of the world. The least he could do is show some baseline level of respect, professionalism, and courtesy. Mr. Watsky has made it clear that he is tired of talking about COVID, masks, and vaccines. In fact, he's gone to such length as to prohibit discussions about it at school board meetings. I speak for the community when I say that we are all tired. We want to be past this nightmare, but unfortunately we aren't. We are still concerned about the health, safety, and well-being of our children and our community. Not just regarding the spread of COVID, but on the psychological, psychosocial, mental, and other physical effects all this is having on everyone. Believe me, we are tired. We are still here advocating for our children in a world that isn't, crying out for discussion in a world that suppresses, fighting for a solution in a world that only sees an agenda. For our superintendent to tell us we can't speak on issues that are directly affecting our children shows very clearly that the well-being of our children is not the priority. And so we will continue to advocate for our children no matter how fatigued we get. Just because we are tired doesn't mean we are finished. At most school board meetings in other school districts, the superintendent sits off to the side. He or she speaks when addressed by the school board, observes the meetings, and then implements what is decided upon by the school board based on input from the community they serve. We currently have a superintendent who sits front and center, speaks for the school board, runs the meeting, and rather than observe them, and makes policies for an agenda based on money and reputation rather than health, safety, and education. I kindly ask that for future meetings, Mr. Watsky sits off to the side and fulfills only the roles for which he was hired to do, and that our school board sets back into their roles of serving our community. I think this is the most appropriate way to run future board meetings, since Mr. Watsky has continuously displayed that he feels he is exempt from showing the same level of respect he demands from the community. If he refuses to show the community respect and professionalism, at least it will not be as blatantly obvious and disheartening from the side. We will not stop advocating for our children in our community, regardless of COVID. Just like it is responsibility of the school board to listen to the public and then decide on policies of well-being of our schools, it is our responsibility to stand up for our children and community and speak out when we feel we have been wrong. We have spoken our minds with integrity, we have advocated our positions peacefully, and we have stated our opinions respectfully. We are dedicated to our role, and right now, we feel you are not.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Next, we have Deb Cradiger.
I'm Deb Cradiger, I live here in Monroe. Over the last several months, many parents and citizens have come before you, the school board, countless times to express their personal stories concerning their children, share data and facts addressing your COVID-19 protocols. All too often, it feels like no one is listening. No one is doing their due diligence to do their own research. So I'm going to try a different approach. Let's imagine that we lived in a world where the government was saying, we have a healthy cookie called the CDC cookie, and you must eat this cookie. If you do not eat this cookie, you will no longer be allowed to work in the military. If you don't eat this cookie, you will no longer be able to continue in your profession as a doctor, a nurse, a police officer, an EMT, and countless other professions. If you don't eat this cookie, we're going to shut down your business. If you don't eat this cookie, you're not going to be able to go shopping in the grocery stores or go to shows or gather in large groups. If you are a student in the Monroe School District and you don't eat this cookie, and it's been determined that you have been in close contact with another student that tested positive with COVID-19, you are forced to leave school, depriving you of your education for a period of time. You must eat this cookie. Everyone has to eat the cookie. Now, as Christians, God tells us to show concern for the preservation of human life and to love our neighbor. What is your long-term safety data about said cookie? And what if the government said, well, this is a new cookie, but trust us. Eat the cookie, it's safe. A Christian who has allegiance to Christ, God's law, and a concern for love of neighbor says, pause, wait. I'm not against eating cookies. Sometimes cookies can be good, really good. Cookies say with many years of safety data showing that it will not ultimately harm me, my husband, my children, my family, my neighbors. These may not be bad cookies. We're not anti-cookiers. I'm not an anti-cookier, but this cookie, let's just speculate here. Imagine a world where this is actually happening, but these cookies have no long-term safety data to show me that it's safe for my neighbors. And the short-term safety data is alarming and in many ways very suspicious. Let's imagine that we lived in a world where the government says you must eat this cookie. Don't worry, it's safe. And let's imagine there was a daily report that you could go to that shows the cookie eating adverse events. And let's imagine that as of today, the report coming from official sources was that 818,042 adverse events were reported from eating the cookie. Of that 818,000, 17,128 people died from eating the cookie. And let's imagine that there were 83,412 hospitalizations of your neighbors and mine who ate the cookie. 2,631 miscarriages and 26,199 permanently disabled from eating the cookie. And many scientists who study these reports find the adverse events reported due to eating the cookie is at an incredible level of underreporting. My question is this: do we as Christians and responsible adults have an obligation to say something about that? Love for neighbor, love for our children demands that we do. If only the cookie story were imaginary. In my cookie story, the numbers from the reports of cookie injury is the actual true number of COVID vaccine injuries reported to date on the CDC website. It's called VAERS, V-A-E-R-S, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. The Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality that works within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services funded a study by Harvard Medical School. 715,000 patients were tracked reporting to VAERS over a 3-year period at Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. The report concluded that fewer than 1% of vaccine adverse events are reported. Do the math. If 17,128 is only 1% of the people reported having died from the vaccine, I'm coming before you again, asking you to do your job, do your research, stop the coercion for students to get the cookie. Every time one of you encourages parents or students to get the vaccine, takes you outside of your scope of authority. Our Wisconsin legislation is clear on school board power. It is focused on education. Matters regarding the health of a child, whether it be masks or vaccines, are not within your scope of authority. I am calling on you to stop making medical decisions regarding the health of this community's children. Those decisions should be an option left to parents.
John Wood?
You were handed an envelope by Cindy. In that envelope, I have a copy of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, which you guys swore an oath to protect. I believe you're in violation of that oath. So I gave you a copy of that. I'm just gonna read a quick quote from that. Alexander Hamilton. The sacred rights of mankind are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records. They are written as with a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the hand of the divinity himself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power. Declaration of Independence. I also have in here, I mentioned this in an email several months ago, and numerous people have spoken about the mask being a medical device according to the FDA. I gave you a copy of this. Okay, section 201H of the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act. A device is an instrument, apparatus, implement, machine, contrivance, implement, in vitro reagent, or other similar related article, including or compartmental part or accessory, which is recognized in the official national formulary or the United States Pharmacopoeia, if I said that wrong, I apologize, or any supplement to them. Intended for the use of diagnostics of disease or other conditions, or in the cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease in man or animals, or intended to affect the structure of any function of a body or man or other animals, and which does not achieve its primary intended purpose through chemical action within on the body of man or animals, and which does not achieve its primary intended purpose through chemical actions within on the man or body of animals, which is not dependent upon being metabolized for the achievement of primary intended purposes. The term device does not include software functions. By implementing the mask mandate on our children in the grade schools and potentially the others at 7th through 12th grades, okay, you are determining that that mask is being used to mitigate the stop the disease of COVID-2. As such, it is deemed a medical device. Another page I have in here. Under the FDA Home Medical Devices Database, surgical mask is a medical device. Surgical mask with antimicrobial. Face mask for enforcement policy, face mask and respiratory during the declaration of a health emergency. Do you guys understand that the mask falls under the EUA? It's emergency authorized use only. Okay, as such, you have to inform consent to everyone that's putting this mask on, all the adverse effects, which I have not seen anywhere. Okay, as such, these are copies for you. I just wanted on public notice that you have been given the copies. Masks are a medical device. Wisconsin statute 448.12, malpractice. Anyone practicing medicine, surgery, osteopathy, and other form of system treating the sick without having a license or a certificate of registration shall be liable for penalties and liables for malpractice. And ignorance shall not lessen such liability for failing to perform or for negligently or unskillfully performing or attempting to perform any duty assumed, which is ordinary to perform by authorized practitioners. You guys are practicing medicine without a medical license. I'm just making you aware of that. I know you have said numerous times that your legal counsel has said you have authority to mandate all this. I believe your legal counsel is giving you false advice, wrong advice. That's all I have to say. You are literally taking the rights of our God-given rights of freedom, life, liberty, freedom, pursuit of happiness, away from our children and even the teachers at our grade schools, 6th grade at the middle school level. Okay? It is a decision to the parents of these children for their medical, whatever it is necessary for the health of their kids. If they want to put a mask on, great. It should be optional by the parents, not mandatory. Okay? That's all I ask. Make it a choice for the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Witt. That concludes public comment. Old business this evening. Move on to new business. First item before us is approval of the 2021 through 2022 budget adjustments.
Not many changes to the budget. Basically, the only changes you'll see are the updates to the taxes, general aids, and some of the other revenues that are certified by the state after October 15th. So if we look at our revenue limit, the final numbers that came in after October 15th, our revenue limit actually came in $104,368 higher than we have projected for the annual meeting, so that's good news. The bad news is it's due to declining enrollment, so right now, when we're not allowed any increases to our revenue limit, by the state legislation, there's a hold harmless agreement that comes into effect if your base number would go backwards, and so, that would have been our situation. Without it, we actually are able to get some additional revenue limit, and, that will help our budget for this year, but our base going forward, does take a hit. We also had $11,213 of one-time additions. Those are basically for open enrollment situations where students moved, their open enrollment status during the course of last school year. And basically, it just makes sure that we get the revenue that we would have been due last year as a one-time adjustment for this year. Our state equalization aid, came in less than what the state had estimated July first. So that was a $299,137 decrease from the original estimate. And it's over a $500,000 decrease from last year's aid. So that obviously is a pretty significant hit for our district. With no increase to the revenue limit, had our aid came in at the amount that was last year, our levy would have been even less this year, which would have been good for our mill rate and been good for our levy. But we're one of the few districts in the state that actually saw our, state aid actually get reduced. And so, there was a handful of districts, predominantly districts that generally run a robust summer school like we do. And so the summer of 2020, when COVID was first starting, most districts weren't running a summer school program. We did not have a summer school program. And so those districts who ran an expansive summer school saw a need reduction, for this current year. So hopefully we'll get some of that back next year, now that we have a summer school this year. Per pupil aid, was a slight reduction of $6,678. And so I'll get into the levy amounts in a second on the next agenda item, but you can see on your change adopted, budget document there, $340,314 increase in, the state, or in the taxes line. The $299,137 reduction in the general aid line, and then our other state sources, an increase of $56,513. Total net changes to revenues was an increase of $97,690. And so what that will take is, at the annual meeting, we had an anticipated deficit for the current year of $591,867. That'll reduce that down to $494,177. So that's probably one of the lowest projected deficits we've gone in the year with for a while now. So unless something unexpected comes up in the budget, we usually bring our budget in under, and so we should easily be able to capture that and have our budget by the end of the year end up being either even or in the black. I would expect. Any questions on the changes?
If there are no additional questions, this item does require action. Somebody would like to make a motion?
I move to approve budget adjustments for 21-22.
A motion by Nikki and a second by Tim. Additional conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by voice vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. On to approval of the